What's going on? I'm Spencer Tillis with Burn City Sports. Well, a bunch of things going on around the sports world this week, and a few things that I want to jump into on the national scene. But first, I got to start with whatever happened last night with the Suns as they were squaring off against the Spurs. I don't know what is going on with Phoenix right now, but it has turned into a full-on dumpster fire, and it is a lot going wrong there. There is a lot of blame to go around. And I'm here to start saying we are not giving enough of it to Coach Bud, because the coaching job that he has done this year has been an unmitigated disaster. He's been awful. Like, plain and simple, he has been awful. And I want to go through some of the markers of this season and the things that he has done to kind of define where this team is or where they really aren't at this point. So if we turn back the clock to this summer, everyone and kind of on the national scale, this was still picked as a team that a lot of people thought had a chance of making a run in the West. And for good reason. They have an insane amount of individual talent on this roster, up and down, and led by the big three. And everyone says, all right, well, it's been a few years and nothing's happened with them yet. But they were never healthy. And so that was the thing. It was, if we can just stay healthy this year with this group of talent, easily this team is one that has to be in contention in the West and can make a run at the playoffs and maybe even a title. That was the thinking, as long as all the pieces fall into play. All right, fast forward, to midway through December, it's not happening. They're looking at a 500, hanging around there. After a bit of a good start to the year, they kind of tank a little bit. And then all of a sudden, there are a lot of rumors about what is going on in the locker room, what's the problems, how we're going to figure this all out. It's unsteady out there is the best way you can describe it. And normally in that situation, it would be a great thing to have a strong leader and a coach that has won a national or has won a championship to kind of settle everyone down. He doesn't do that. The rumors don't really kind of quiet down. It's just like the gas is added to the fire, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. Then all of a sudden, we go through the whole drama that is them openly courting that they want Jimmy Butler, and then them saying, we got to figure out how to get Bradley Beal out of town, because we're going to say Bradley Beal is the problem. Here's the thing. I'm not going to defend that contract. That contract is wild. $50 million for a guy right now that has a no-trade clause, one of only two players in the entire league with one, and we're trying to find in rotation. We're trying to see how he fits to this whole team. That's a lot. That's a huge pill to swallow. I also don't think it's all his fault. I also think this guy can still play, and he can still be a 20-point game in average on the right team in the right situation. I just think he's in a weird spot right now, and more importantly, I think they hired a defensive coach that doesn't know how to fit all of his pieces on offense together. And so what we have right now is him just saying, well, we've got to make some moves, and we're just going to keep shaking this up with no real plan, with no real good execution of anything. And that is a huge indictment on him as a coach and as him as a leader. So we get to January, and after the gases continue to be added to the fire and the flames are getting bigger and bigger, we decide the answer is it's not going to be with what we have on the court just now. We got to shake things up because, like I said, Bradley Beal, you're the problem here. So we're going to move Bradley Beal to the bench, and he's going to be instantly the highest paid player in the league on the bench, and that's not close. And then we're also going to move Nurkic out of the starting lineup as well, and we're going to try and shuffle this whole thing up. I'm not going to defend Nurkic either. I think there's a lot of teams that would take him as their starting center right now. But we keep going back to this thing, fit. And fit is more than just the pieces. I think people get hung up on the idea of fit as a puzzle, like a flat board puzzle. And they say this is the one piece, and if it doesn't fit, well, we just need to find a new piece and then plug it in. I don't think players work that way. I don't think basketball works that way. I don't think sports really work that way. I think they are a lot more like a Rubik's Cube than like an actual puzzle. Because sometimes you just got to rotate what you're doing with that same piece, and then it'll work a lot better. And you have to find it where it all flattens out and then it all works out. That comes on the coach. That comes with the system that you're running. That comes with where you are putting your players and in what kind of position you are playing them. And this is, again, why I think this season has been a huge indictment on Coach Bud. And all of a sudden, he's looking a lot more like Doc Rivers than any other coach. The one that won a title because he had some superstar talent on his team when he was with Milwaukee, when he had Giannis leading the way, versus being a coach that is kind of elevating his players, putting them in the best position and kind of helping them get them over the top. He's looking more like a coach that was carried by his players at this point. Not a great thing. So you move Bradley Beal to the bench. You move Nurkic to the bench. Things still really are not working out all that well. And so then you decide, okay, well, we need to make another change. We need to shuffle up this roster. And it keeps falling on the players. The blame keeps getting shifted from one player to the next to the next. And I'm kind of sick of that. This is on Coach Bud. So the latest one, we're sitting here now, we're looking at what's going on with the roster, and the latest trend of a player to blame is Tyus Jones. Now, I was a huge fan of that signing in the offseason. I thought they got Jones on a great team-friendly contract. I thought he fit very well when you just look at the pieces of what he could do to this team. A ball handler, a distributor that didn't turn over the ball, that was a very high percentage shooter. He only took good shots, but he wasn't really out there as a scorer. He was a guy that could facilitate and set up Durant, set up Booker, and find ways to kind of get this offense and unlock it in a way that it really hasn't been in the last few seasons. So I was a big fan of it. I still think he can play it. I still think he can do all of that. I just don't think he's been put in the right position. And once again, that's on you, Coach Bud. What are we doing? So everyone's saying now we need more defense on the court, that the Suns need to figure out a way to have better defenders out there and a better team defense. The narrative that's being created is that Tyus Jones at the point of attack isn't being a good defender, and that's the problem right now. We need to fix the point of attack. That blew up a little bit when in the game when KD had said, we need somebody out there who can guard. And everyone said, well, why is Tyus Jones out there? He's the one that he's inadvertently pointing at, saying this guy's not guarding. He's not wrong. I mean, in that one game, it could have really helped to have a better defender on the court. If they only had one, that's right, they do. They do have a good defender on the court. How do you have Ryan Dunn? And this brings me to the bigger point that I want to talk about with what's going on with this team. How do you have Ryan Dunn on this roster and you can't find him a minute? Not a minute. You're 3 games under 500. And you're telling me a guy that made the Rising Stars team can't find a minute of playing time on this team, and he's known as a defender that can shoot a little bit? We can't put him on the court? What are we doing? What is Coach Bud seeing? What is Coach Bud thinking that he says, we don't need that guy out there right now, that we're going to be fine without him? What that led to is a loss to the Spurs, which honestly might be one of the worst losses that they've had this entire year. A Victor Wembanyama-less Spurs just beat you. And you had a pretty healthy full roster to kind of pick from right now, and you can't beat that team. 3 games under 500. I don't know what Coach Bud is doing. It does not make sense, his rotations. He's supposed to be a defensive guy. The system he's running on defense is gotten this team worse defensively than they were last year. It just seems like every lever he's pulling, whatever he's doing, there's no real plan, and it's not working. It's not working. We need to stop blaming the players on this team and start turning some of that attention on Coach Bud and turning up the heat on him and saying, if you're a defensive coach, fix the defense. We've got all these offensive players. Put them in a system that's going to work for them. Figure it out. Figure it out. You're a head coach in the NBA, and you got a team full of stars and talent. Figure it out. Don't be 3 games under 500 and lose to one of the bottom feeder teams in the West right now when they were missing their superstar player. That's inexcusable. Like, just hands down inexcusable. All right, well, let's transition to something else that I want to talk a little bit about. We had mentioned kind of a lot on the last pod about the NBA All-Star Game and kind of all of the changes and stuff that kind of went into it, what worked, what didn't. A lot of it didn't. Now, Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, You can say a lot about him, but one thing you can't say is that he's afraid to roll the dice and make some changes. This guy, he'll do it. He's not going to leave any bullets in the chamber. He's not going to leave anything off the table. He's going to try whatever comes to mind, whatever he can think of that he believes will better the ratings, will better the interest, will push it. It's all on the table. Even him talking about changing the quarters down to 10 minutes to try and fit international play, which would just wildly change the record books when you start looking at it, rather than 48 minutes a game only having 40. But he did suggest something that got brought up a little bit that got my interest. He talked about possibly bringing in the All-Star weekend, a one-on-one competition. I'm here for it. I'm pretty excited about this idea. Now, we're not getting them in the dunk contest anymore, but if we get the right talent for a one-on-one competition, I'm locked in. I'm there. This would be a lot of fun. And there are so many names on this list. And I tried to go through my mind and think about what names would be really suited for this type of competition, who would really do well. And initially I'm like, it's got to be like Giannis. It's got to be a big athletic forward that can both like body and kind of back people down while also being able to defend and, all different ranges and stuff like that. And I started there and I was like, all right, Durant, a guy that can, if you have a guard on him, he can shoot over the top of anybody, and he can also use his length to kind of defend a little bit. I don't think they would win. I have an interesting pick. I think Kyrie Irving would win a one-on-one competition in the league if you had it. And I don't think I'm the only guy that would say that. I think if you ask some players, Kyrie has the ability to finish with either hand below the rim and in traffic and kind of contort and find angles better than anyone we've ever seen. I also think we don't understand how challenging it is for some bigger guys to be defended by smaller guys. You're used to having a larger body as a big that is defending you. When you're going as a bigger guy up against a smaller guy that has speed, it gets tricky. You can't find the right angles. You're almost relying sometimes as a big guy on bracing against that contact as you're going up against your defender. And you don't get that with little guys. Instead, they're just running around you and they just pick your pocket and they go out. And then you have an incredible hard time guarding him on the other side. He would be super fun to watch. And you can go through the list. There's been so many ex-NBA players. Iman Shumpert even said that he was one of the hardest guys that he's ever had to guard, because normally offensive players seemingly have a plan of, I'm going to attack this angle, I'm going to get right there, and then if you block that, I'm going to go this way. And like, I have moves that I like to go to. Kyrie doesn't do that. Kyrie literally just seems to go off of feel, and if you go the wrong way, then he just very naturally flows in that other direction. Flow is the best way to describe the way that he moves on the court and the way that he plays. And in one-on-one, boy, it'd be really fun to see if anyone could actually slow him down and kind of keep up with him, because that would be amazing. I will say this. If there is one player that I think also would be there, like I said, I think Durant has a pretty good shot at this. I think Booker would do really well in a one-on-one competition. And they always do these in the Olympics as well. After practice, guys have one-on-one. And Kyrie and Booker were the two guys on Team USA that used to just dominate in these one-on-one competitions. Now, is it make it, take it? Because if it is, you're going to have a hard time. Say Giannis was in there and he just decided, I'm going to straight back down Kyrie every time, and if he just keeps making the ball, you're just going to keep taking it back. Make it, take it, they might have a harder time. If it's not, and you get the ball back if they make it, and on defense, and you get a switch, and then you're going to go, ones and twos. If it's ones and twos, I'm here for it. For as many bad ideas have happened in the league lately, an NBA All-Star event that's one-on-one, yeah, sign me up for that. I'll be here for that. That'd be really interesting. Last thing I want to talk about, and I'm not going to dive too deep into it because there's a lot of things still kind of waiting to come out on it. The college football playoffs, wait for it, are getting ready to expand. Now, we kind of all expected this to happen at some point. Looks like it's going to happen earlier than we all maybe initially thought. Not this upcoming season, but the season after that. So 2 years from now, we're looking at possibly going to a 14 or 16 team tournament. Now, if they went to 14, and I was just trying to think about it, if they had done that this year, the two teams that would get in would be Alabama and Miami. Sign me up for that. You're telling me that we get Jalen Milroe and Cam Ward, who's probably going to be the number one pick in this year's NFL draft. They're going to make it. Yeah, I would take that. That sounds pretty amazing. They also are talking about changing up kind of the format. And look, if you watched the playoffs this year, which I'm sure all of us did, something had to change. They didn't like the automatic top 4 seeds being conference winners, and I get some of it when you start looking at, like, was Boise State really deserving of a top 4 seed? Probably not. Kind of cost Oregon in a big way. So now they're trying to avoid that, and the major 2 conferences on that push are the SEC and the Big Ten. Now, this is where things get really kind of complicated, and you got to go through the weeds for it. In order for any changes to happen, it has to be unanimous. All of the conferences and Notre Dame have to agree to whatever changes are come. So why would the Big 12, why would the ACC, some of these conferences, get rid of their automatic seeds when they decide, when they bring that? That makes no sense. They're the ones that are benefiting from this. It's hurting the Big Ten. It's hurting the SEC. Why would you ever want to get rid of that? Well, the problem is the SEC and the Big Ten kind of run the show. It comes down to that. They're where the money is. Money talks. And so if they decide that they want to do this and they're threatening it and they're serious, it goes a long way. And so the Big 12, ACC, all these other conferences don't want to lose that portion of it. And because of it, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be able to make as many rule changes and kind of push as much as they want because they're driving the TV revenue, they are driving the money, and cash is king at the end of the day. So it looks like we're going to get rid of this automatic top 4 seeds being the highest winners of those highest 4 conference champions. That hurts. That hurts a lot for the Big 12 and some of these other conferences. But I don't think it's the end of the world. So if we go to 16 teams, the belief is there's going to be 4 automatic bids given to the SEC, 4 automatic bids given to the Big Ten, and then we start splitting up the rest of it. And you're like, why would 2 of the conferences get 8? Well, once again, they're carrying the big stick here, and everyone else is kind of following along. Maybe it's not fair. Maybe it's super fair because they're the ones that generate most of the money. Whatever. But if you do that, and so they say every conference is guaranteed those wins, this is the part that I think me as the college football fan and you as the college football fan actually come out on top. With the current state of it and the way that college football playoffs are laid out, people wondered what was really the point in scheduling challenging games in your non-conference. Because if you are your record, but if you lost some tough games and scheduled tough games, was it really worth it? Or would you do what Alabama did for years and schedule, Troy, some school that is tiny, and just dominate them in order to get a win on your schedule rather than that's what we're living with. But if you go to the automatic bid and at the start of your season, all these conferences are getting in no matter what's going in, like there's going to be picks from your conference and you are set, you're no longer hamstrung on your scheduling, which means theoretically we will start getting all of those great conference or all those great non-conference matchups that we all want to see should happen because it won't hurt you to lose that game. And 2, you'll be making a lot of TV money if you schedule those games early on in the year. So it will now, rather than going against these teams, Ohio State, going against Alabama, going against Georgia, it'll be in their benefit financially to schedule non-conference games that are against good competition in their early part of the year. On top of the fact, this then allows the SEC what they've been wanting to do for a long time, which is move to a 9-team conference conference schedule. So we're going to have even better games there, and it'll be in conference play. Right now, it doesn't give them a reason to, because you're guaranteeing losses for half your teams if you add that extra game. And that hurts you if you're trying to get teams in the college football playoffs. But if you guarantee spots to a conference, you're set. You're fine. Then that doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is your conference record and then making money. It's not perfect, but does it give us better matchups early on in the year? Looks like that. Does it make everybody more money? Looks like that. I mean, it's going to potentially put these Big 12 teams, these ACC teams, seated in pretty rough spots. Not great, but you make more money. You have better games, better product. Maybe just for the traditional college football fan, I don't know if I'd love it if I was an Arizona State fan, but if I'm a college football fan, I think I sign up for it. It sounds pretty good to me.